Hi guys, my name is Lorbai, or Maddie, and today I'm reading chapter 42 of #Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. We have 8 chapters left until we're done with the book. Let's get right into it. The only thing worse than the smell of burning plastic grass was the smell of burning man bun mixed with burning plastic grass. Dee limped across the field, carefully stepping over bits of smoldering appendages. Her rolled ankle throbbed, but she could still bear her weight through, though tenderly. Not sprained, not broken. She'd just have to deal. If only she had a pair of... Near the edge of the field, Dee stopped, lying side by side as if there by magic were BB's flip-flops. They must have blown off his gross, hairy man feet by the force of the explosion, and though Dee was relatively sure she just tiptoed around one of his legs that was severed at the ankle, the brown leather mandals looked blood-free and pristine. What was worse, going barefoot or wearing the hipster shoes of a dead serial killer? With a shrug, Dee slipped her feet into the flip-flops. They were about a size too large. But nothing she couldn't manage. Well, that was one problem solved, only about 1 million left, but she'd start with the most immediate one. What was she supposed to do next? Barbaric Barista had been waiting for her. The football field, the exploding frisbees, those had been planned in advance. Dee's eyes traveled to the nearest camera. The red dot of light squarely facing her. The postman was filming every moment as she took out yet another of his paniacs. So Dee's hunch had been right. The postman wanted his killers dead. There was a new batch of them arriving soon, and it was time to liquidate the old ones. Dee was pretty sure the paniacs had no idea they were being set up. Maybe she could use that information to her advantage. There was only one way to find out. She poked her head tentatively into the corridor where BB had emerged on his bike, half expecting someone to jump out at her with a machete or a poisonous snake, but all she found was another messenger bag. It was the identical twin to the one BB had been carrying, and Dee carefully lifted the flap with her toe. She could see a dozen or more red frisbees packed inside. BB must have brought another round of ammo and stashed it back there in case he needed it. Weird place to leave him, but whatever. Dee was pretty sure she couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with one of those frisbees, but now that she knew how they worked, she at least had a weapon. Ho, 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 Dee said to herself as she looped the bag over her shoulders. Now I have exploding frisbees. She smiled. Ethan would have been so proud. The corridor was narrow, hardly wide enough for a person to squeeze through. It twisted and turned at a sharp 90-degree angle. It twisted and turned at sharp 90-degree angles until Dee was hopelessly confused as to which direction she'd come from and which way she was going. It was dark in this coiled interior of Slayer's old maze, and at each corner she expected to encounter some life-threatening booby trap or worse, another paniac. But all she saw were the cameras everywhere. She limped her way through the maze for what felt like an eternity before a ball of flame flew past her. impaling the wall beside her, an arrow with a flaming tip. Behind her, a crash as if something heavy and metallic had fallen to the ground. She spun around to find an iron gate impeding her retreat. Well, now she knew where one of the gates from Molly's cages had ended up. Dee was now trapped with Robin's hood, but she quickly realized that he was only half the challenge. Robin was there, of course, poised beside a large, bubbling hot tub with a bow in one hand and an open Zippo lighter in the other. But he wasn't alone. Standing on a scaffold behind him was Hannah Ball. Robin was dressed in what appeared to be a makeshift outfit. His black tights were opaque, but not completely, showing lighter patches around the knees, and a hint of the controlled top panel peeking out mid-thigh from behind a heather gray long-sleeve shirt he wore as a tunic. Black boots laced up past the ankle, but they were scruffy and well-worn, the leather creased near the toes, as if he'd hiked halfway across the country in them. Only the executioner's cowl, his signature look, appeared professionally designed and not thrown together at the last minute. This manifestation of Robin's hood certainly didn't match the dapper, dainty highwayman persona that graced all of his merch, which seemed highly suspicious until Dee remembered that Robin hadn't actually appeared on the video during Dr. Farouk's murder. Had that been a last-minute assignment? Had Robin been given insufficient time to plan an elaborate costume? Possibly. It was pretty clear that Robin hadn't left the island after Dr. Farouk's death, so his current outfit had been cobbled together from whatever he could find. Hannah Ball, on the other hand, had come prepared. Of course, her costume wasn't nearly as complicated. The chef, with a penchant for human flesh, dressed as a chef. Well, it says as a chef. She wore a white double-breasted coat with black buttons running in parallel rows down the front, and the sleeves cuffed just about the wrist, paired with matching white pants and black kitchen clogs. Her dark, wiry hair fell in two tight braids in front of her shoulders, peeking out from beneath her quintessential chef's hat, which was tall and puffy, I don't know, inflated like a balloon. But instead of her sitting on her brow, the brim of the hat extended downward towards the bridge of her nose, covering her forehead and eyes, with two oval holes cut into it so that way she could see. "Greetings, dear Cinderella," Robin cried, his voice loud and booming with an efficient pomposity that made him sound like an actor at a medieval times restaurant. "We are honored to be the first to welcome thee to this maze of delights." The first? So Robin and Hannah didn't know that Dee had already disposed of Barbaric Barista? Interesting. Dee wondered what exactly the postman told his paniacs to get them into the maze. There was an awkward pause, as if both Hannah and Robin were waiting for the other to speak, as far as Dean knew, there had never been a Paniac collaboration, so these two clearly weren't used to working together. After a few seconds, Robin cleared his throat and nodded his head in Hannah's direction, prompting her to say something. "Right, sorry," Hannah muttered, then jutted out her chin. "You've arrived just in time for dinner." Her voice, also in character, was high and snooty, like a bad impression of Julia Child. "I'm planning one of my specialties." "Let me guess," Dee said, channeling some of Griselda's snark. "Filet of Cinderella Frasceschi, Princess Soufflé with a side of Cinderella sauce." Robin exchanged a confused glance with Hannah. No, Hannah repeated, stomping her foot for emphasis. The scaffolding rocked back and forth. "Tonight I shall demonstrate my sous vide technique with kebab of Cinderella." Dee had no idea what sous vide technique might be, but she'd guessed that it had something to do with the bubbling hot tub. She eyed Robin's quiver of arrows. The kebab part was self-explanatory. "This hot tub," Hannah explained obligingly, "has been heated to exactly 212 degrees Fahrenheit, the exact temperature at which water boils." "Great." "The meat," she continued, "once impaled on the kebab, is sealed in an airtight plastic container before it is submerged in the water bath, thus providing an even cooking time." Robin interrupted her. "While you, dear princess, suffocate and bleed to death while you're being boiled alive." Yeah, because she totally hadn't put those pieces together already. Hannah was clearly annoyed at the cutoff during her soliloquy. "Even cooking time," she said, emphasizing each syllable. Robin bowed at the waist. A thousand pardons, good lady." Hannah drew herself up, puffing her chest out before continuing, "and ensuring that the inside of Cinderella is properly cooked without charring the delicate flesh on the outside." Well, Dee had heard enough. She wasn't going to become sous vide anything. She wasn't going to become sous vide anything. She slipped her hand into the messenger bag and pulled out a frisbee. She'd only get one shot, maybe two, before Robin realized what was going on. She peppered her with flaming arrows. Unlike the frisbee field, where she had plenty of room to maneuver around barbaric baristas' slow-moving projectiles, this tight space had little room for Dee to navigate in, and Robin, who was an excellent marksman, had weapons that moved a hell of a lot faster than flying plastic discs. Meanwhile, Dee hadn't thrown a frisbee since she was a kid. As she carefully hid the bright red toy behind her body, she hoped the crappy throwing technique didn't produce some kind of boomerang effect and send the explosive directly back to her. The only way to find out, with a flick of her thumb, she threw the switch arming the frisbee, then twisted her body and uncorked her weapon. This was a thing of beauty, watching that red plastic soar soar through the air, and Dee could have sworn that time slowed down as she, Hannah, and Robin all stared fixedly at the wand toy, which slowly glided down to the floor and to rest peacefully at Robin's feet. "Fuck," Dee said. "Seriously?" She'd gotten the one dud in BB's arsenal. Could her luck be any worse? Robin crouched down and picked up the toy. "What confounded contraption of the devil is this?" He exclaimed, as if he's never seen a frisbee before. He turned it over and stared at the underbelly, and Dee noticed that the red light indicated that the armed status of the device wasn't flashing. "She's trying to distract you," Hannah said. "Hurry up and shoot her." Madame," Robin said, his voice haughty. "I do not hurry up and do anything." Then he let the frisbee fall from his hand, picked up an arrow from his quiver, and flicked the Zippo to life. "Screw this." Dee dropped the messenger bag to the floor, shoved both hands inside, arming as many devices as she could. Then she grabbed the bag by the handle and spun around, swinging it like a hammer throw, and launched it at Robin's head. The heavy bag landed at Robin's feet beside the discarded frisbee, and for a moment Dee thought she was screwed and the entire contents of the bag was faulty. But before she could even register the fear, the bag detonated. The hand holding the Zippo went flying in one direction. Robin's arm and head went flying in another. The force of the explosion rocked the support beams of the scaffolding. Hannah staggered as the wood structure swayed from side to side. Grabbing one of the beams for support before she could get a firm hold, the edificeable buckled, and the platform on which she stood tilted downward towards the hot tub. Hannah lost her balance, arms flailing as she desperately tried to grab hold of anything to prevent her fall, but it was too late. With a heavy splash, the chef plummeted into the boiling water, where bits of Robin bobbed like veggies in a broth. There was a hiss, followed by a sickening gargle scream as Hannah frantically splashed around in 212-degree water. Her cries were so horrifying that Dee's stomach clenched involuntarily, as if she'd eaten anything, and if she'd eaten anything in the last 12 hours, she probably would have puked it up on her pilafried leather flip-flops. An arm emerged from the water, clinging desperately to the side of the hot tub. The skin was bubbling, blistered and red. Hannah's fingers had swollen up, now looking more like raw, overstuffed sausages than human digits. As they gripped the edge of the glossy acrylic shell, Hannah was able to raise her head out of the water. At least Dee thought it was her head. The chef's hat was gone, as well as the dark brown wig she'd worn. Most of Hannah's actual blonde hair had been boiled away from her scalp, leaving small, frazzled clumps protruding from her scalded scalp. Her eyes were wide despite heavy swelling around her brow bone, and her skin was beginning to peel away, exposing puffy pink fatty tissue beneath. Dee's instinct was to run to the hot tub and try to save Hannah, even though she was a psychopathic serial killer who would just as soon drag Dee down with her drag Dee down with her as escape a horrifying death. But the point was moot. Hannah's strength gave way, and she slipped back into the boiling depths. There was a momentary splash and as some water sloshed over the side, and then Hannah was gone. And that is the end of chapter 43. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.